3. Okay, shalom, shalom, everybody. I have a very special guest with me today. Her name is Ashley. I won't be revealing her last name, but Ashley is been working very, very tirelessly and actively throughout Canada, exposing child sex trafficking in Canada and in the United States. In fact, she's in Ottawa right now, which is the capital of Canada, literally standing on the steps of the Parliament building, which she was doing earlier, where she made a video sort of describing what she's doing and what she's organizing. I've known Ashley now for a few months and have been in contact with her. So without further ado, I'm going to hand things over to Ashley. And I'm going to ask Ashley if you could first just sort of give an introduction of who you are and sort of what your background is and what got you into this whole activism against child sex trafficking to begin with.
Hi, Daniel. My name is Ashley Smith. I'm currently, like you say, in Canada. My background is I went to university for business and computer science, but I was a mom. I still am a mom, but some things have happened, some things have transpired, and I've been witness to one of the biggest, I believe, issues affecting the planet, specifically Canada, the US, Australia, the UK, and this is the child abuse. I came into this through my children, through witnessing their disclosures of abuse, through witnessing physical changes within them, and then the attempt to get help. And this is where I got the biggest wake-up call of my life, because you believe that the courts are there to support you. You believe that the police are there to do something about these issues. You believe that the child protection agencies are there to protect children, and it couldn't be any further from the truth. As a society as a whole, we have these understandings of how these things work, and it isn't until you are in the middle of it that you are met with a very stark and very disturbing reality.
Right. Right. So you, and I know you don't want to name names, but you personally have had to deal with this as a mom, where you've been on the raw end of both the police and the local government, basically taking your kids away.
Absolutely. In fact, they removed them due to the fact that I was collecting evidence. I had police threatening me. I had it recorded. When I presented that to the Office of the Police Commissioner, they refused to review the evidence. I've been destroyed. I have some videos on a YouTube channel called Ashley's Army. 2 are very poignant. The one you spoke about in front of the Parliament building, and then the playbook. And I would direct people to go have a look at the playbook. I had written it out at the time, and it's a lot easier to kind of go play by these things. But since that has happened, I've been in touch with some really amazing women across Canada and the United States that have been through the same process that I have, that have very similar stories, that have collaborative evidence regarding the corruption going on within our police centers, our court centers, our child protection agencies. And it seems to be that certain families or certain names can do no wrong. And there's some major protection going on with some very bad actors all over the country and the world, for that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to make sure I link directly to your YouTube channel, Ashley's Army, right below this video. So subscribers can just literally, right below this video, guys, the very first thing you'll see in the description box is you will see Ashley's YouTube channel. And she has, it looks like right now, she has 3 videos up. She has the playbook that she's talking about. Then she also has Ashley at Parliament, where literally she's standing in front of Parliament in Ottawa. And then she has another one called Stand Up For. So I will post that right below. Ashley, if you can go into more detail about this group of women that you formed and kind of what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. This came together just by circumstance, by being in the situations we are. When you're caught in these situations, one of the first things that the system and the abusers do is isolate you. They spread lies and rumors. They attempt to give you a mental health distinction through false reports. The police are guilty of this as well. So we came together to support each other, to let each other know that you're not alone, that, you know, these things are happening systemically. And there's a playbook to it, really, that, you know, they have a certain handful of plays that they put into place in these situations when they're trying to cover up sexual abuse and or propagate it. So we came together as a group, God-fearing individuals that are there to support each other. It started off as a prayer group, but it's morphing into, and there's some other opportunities there. But I'm offering this to other people who've been through similar situations as a way to document your cases if you need to have it anonymous. I know some of the women in the group are under gag orders. Some of them have already been fined. They risk jail just speaking about their stories. So this is a place that you can go to document your evidence, document your cases, find others like you, take part in prayer. And like I said, there are some possibilities going forward of having a group of researchers to really start digging up corrupt officials, corrupt names, putting pieces together and uncovering these networks for what they are.
Do you have an email address that people can reach you at that you're willing to share publicly?
Absolutely, absolutely. I would direct people to voice period voiceless at outlook.com.
Okay, and you can email that to me, or I can get that. We can also put that right below the video as well.
That would be great. That would be great.
Okay, so tell us a little bit. Now you're in Ottawa right now, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
tell us a little bit about what you've been doing in Ottawa.
Well, I originally came here because the system I was dealing with where I was, it was very small, and it was made very clear to me that the ministry, the police, and the court were all working hand in hand in order to obfuscate these issues. There was no way I was going to get any kind of justice or being heard, that the court had intentionally disregarded clear evidence of the sexual abuse of very young children and provided the children to an abuser, and the whole system was cooperating. So I came here, I submitted a statement of claim and a 300 plus motion report to the federal government, which they won't touch, and a constitutional question questioning the police power, the illegal police power of child protection agencies, how they can come into your home, take your children. They don't need a warrant, they don't need any evidence, and this was put into place in order to protect children. So if there was an emergency, that they could step in and protect them, but it's been used to take children that are not in danger and to put them through a system. This is one giant money-making, money marketing scheme, really, that our governments are engaged in across the world, where children have become a dollar sign.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely that way in the United States, where literally Child Protective Services, CPS, they are paid a subsidy from the government for every child that they take out of a family and put into another either foster care system or adopt a family or whatnot. They're paid to do this. And so there's a lot of love for money that has been driving I just interviewed a lady named Heather Michelle in Ohio, who literally, she had her 17-month-old baby who was abused, totally molested because of this wicked system. Are you comfortable with me sharing with people what province you're from in Canada? I won't share your town, but what section from Canada that you're from?
Well, I'm originally from Ontario. These things happen in British Columbia.
British Columbia. So guys, if you remember, I did a whole story about the child sex trafficking that's been going on for actually decades in British Columbia. But, I don't want to reveal Ashley's location, but like she said, she was in a much smaller town and area where she really didn't feel like she would get the resources and help. So now she's gone to Ottawa, the capital of Canada. Ashley, do you think that in these smaller towns and villages that these satanic pedophiles sort of take advantage of how limited the resources are for people like yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is across the board. Like I said, I have evidence on multiple rings across the country. And the interesting thing is when you really start digging into it and come up with the names of judges and police officers who've been threatening people, the names are interesting. It seems to be that there is a lineage, and I know this sounds, people woo-hoo, and there's a bloodline connection to that these families that have been propagating these types of behaviors have been doing it for a very long time. And they've set up shop all over the world where these things happen, not in a vacuum, and there are connections to royalty. There are connections to politicians. And these are the ones especially that I've come across that are destroyed. These are the ones they go after the hardest. When you start figuring out that these connections run deep, really deep, then you are automatically, they target you. They target you for ultimate destruction, because as long as you have a voice, there's a fear. And this is one of my main reasons for developing this group, because together there is safety in numbers. And that's one of the main things that they do, is they isolate you to destroy you, that you don't have help. And I want to make an offer to those out there who may be experiencing similar things, that we're here. We're here for you. We'll hear your story. That's another thing. A lot of these women, they tell the basis of their story, and people think they're crazy. They think that this couldn't possibly be the case. And there's usually a lot more to the story. So this is a place where you can find other people who understand that you are telling the truth. You are not crazy, and you're not alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I did a video a number of weeks ago exposing Justin Trudeau and his father, who had the organization that just was rife with pedophilia, satanic pedophilia symbols. Justin Trudeau himself has had so many associations with satanic pedophiles, and the horrible curriculum that thankfully was rolled back recently. But the horrible curriculum that he promoted, that just, I mean, I read some of this stuff that they were teaching just even little kids in Canada in the public school system. And it's stuff that you wouldn't even as an adult feel comfortable reading some of this stuff. It's so graphic and gross. The sex type of material exposing to these little children. It's just, it blew me away.
This is normal to them. This is something that I was exposed to with this family who's come after me, that they were flags. I didn't quite understand what I was looking at, but the things that they say, the things that they believe are normal, the way that they behave, they are raised this way. And I have an interesting story that, when I was in court one of these times, the uncle-in-law was there, and in the outside of the court, he was sitting there chatting, and he was bragging about this little Dr. Island. He kept saying it. He was talking about how there was a native tribe really close that were very dark in complexion. And I'm sitting there thinking, what does this matter? But he's flaunting it. So I went home and I did a little research, and it turns out it's not Little Dr. Island, it's Little Dr. Lake. It's in the Northwest Territories, and it's actually a hot spot. It's a fly-in only lake. So he was bragging about flying up there. It's a fly-in only lake that is it's a hot spot for Prince Andrew, Prince Charles, and Daddy Trudeau. Go figure. So what is the connection here? That this man, these people who are abusing my children, are frequenting a place that Prince Andrew goes to, who also frequented Little Epstein Island, Little St. James. What are they doing in these places? What is going on? There's also a picture of this man who is bragging about this, tying a rope around my youngest arm. He was only about 1.5 at the time. And they put it online as if some kind of cutesy picture, and he's got this rope wrapped around his arm, and he's holding it on 2 ends. And they tried to say, you know, oh, he was just teaching him how to tie a knot. It was thick, thick rope. What are they telling the other people in their group? What are they communicating? But we're crazy for even thinking it. What reason would you have to be putting that picture on, you know, social media as some kind of cutesy little thing? Something is very wrong here. And our children are in danger, and people need to wake up to the realities of these things, because it's not going away until we face it off. And there's one other thing I want to say is, ever since that I've been pushing this issue, I've noticed that the media are reporting a lot of the native apprehensions, and they're purposely dividing the population, attempting to say, you know, this is a native issue. This is not just a native issue. I'm not discrediting their struggle, because it's absolutely true. But what I'm saying is, it's being propagated in a way to divide people, to provide part of the truth. There was an article that was put out in September, and it was reporting on a coroner's report out of Ontario. And it was a coroner's panel. There was 12 kids that died in care that they were looking into. 8 of them were suicides. Right in this coroner's panel, it reports that the children had been trafficked or were at risk of being trafficked. This is in September. This is what they are flaunting right in front of your face, that while these children are in their care homes or their foster homes or their group homes, they are being trafficked. They're being trafficked by our governments, and that's what they're hiding. The media will report on these people trafficking. Oh, look at this human trafficking report, and look, this man was selling women, or look, we're doing this bust, and we were catching these men trying to connect with underage girls on the internet. What they're not telling you is that your governments are engaged right now in the sex trafficking of children.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah, it's a systemic problem. It's going on, of course, all over the world, but we're specifically talking about Canada and the United States for that matter as well. I was just listening to an interview that Liz Crokin was giving, where she was talking about children not only being carried on these private jets, but also literally they're putting children into shipping containers. And there are literally high-ranking officials at these different ports, both in Canada and the United States, and they know about this. They're in on it. They're getting kickbacks and paid for it, and they're literally putting children in shipping containers. Guys, if you're watching this, it's about time we wake up and we actually use our voice, we use our actions, we do something. The child sex trafficking that's going on is the single most important issue that we could be talking about right now. I can't imagine anything more important than our own children. And here, you know, I have a young lady here from Canada who has been very personally affected by this because her own children have been taken from her. Ashley, how long have you sort of been going through this struggle of, you know, both your children being taken and you fighting this battle against these pedophiles in Canada?
My youngest son was 6 weeks old when my older son, who was just over 2, showed me with actions and little words what had been happening to him. And I couldn't deny the truth anymore. I couldn't deny what he'd been trying to tell me, because you don't want to go there. You don't want to believe it. He made it very clear what was happening to him. I escaped. I was forced back into that situation. And from that point on, the father of my youngest was given access at that time to a 6-month-old baby, to a baby. For 2 more years, I had to witness how my child would be returned to me. Sometimes it would only be a couple hours, and he would come back with rips in his foreskin, with his anus dilating. And I'm sorry for getting so graphic about this, but immediately people think, oh, you must be out of your mind. No, this is what I was seeing. How can you deny what you're seeing? So these are the things I was documenting. This is why they stole my children, because beyond a shadow of a doubt, they're hiding something. So for 2 years, I went through this. And about 3 months ago, after I was given, the full custody of my youngest was left in my care. But the father was now given unsupervised visitation. Not that the supervision mattered. It was his family supervising. They were all perpetuating it. This happened in court. Within less than a month, the ministry swooped in and stole my children because they were attempting to oversee a judicial order, because they were helping to propagate the abuse of my children. And on top of it, this is how disgusting this is. So my youngest, my oldest son, who had disclosed these things to me, I was able to get him safe. And because he wasn't his son, he'd only known him since he was about 7 months old. I was able to get him safe, and he had not had to be around this person for 2 years. When the ministry took my children, they gave them both to him and his aunt. A child who had been safe for 2 years. Oh, it gets worse. It gets worse. Because before this happened, the ministry was threatening with taking my children, this, that. They forced me, through threats, to put that son in a daycare. And he started coming home telling me about things happening at that daycare that would sound absolutely unbelievable to most. This is the daycare the ministry had me put him in. This is how they operate. It's not a joke. It's not crazy. It's not a lie. This is what they are engaged in. And some areas are worse than others. Don't get me wrong. They seem to have this one town totally in cahoots in every way, shape, and form. And it is a lot of old blood, really, really old blood. But these things are very real. And they stole my children because they were speaking to me and I was documenting evidence. So they not only took them to silence me, they took them to silence a 4- and a 2-year-old, to indoctrinate them into their system of cruelty and absolute destruction. This is real. This is so real.
And guys, if you're doubting this at all, I want to just say that her story has so many parallels to what's going on with the Hampstead case, if you know about that, which is a very famous case. But there's a Hampstead case going on in the UK right now, where almost the exact same thing has happened, where these 2 little kids who were very obviously brutally raped and molested and abused. And what does the UK government do? They put them in the custody of Ricky Dearman, who is a satanic pedophile, just like they've done with her, where they took their kids, gave it to the father, who very obviously has been abusing them, and went out of their way to protect him. And this is going on and on and on across country after country, across the world. These satanic pedophiles operate this way. Now, can you answer any questions along the lines of the father of your children? Did he have any connections with the local government or with these satanic pedophiles as to why they were specifically trying to protect him and help him, or can you share anything about that?
Father of my youngest, not father of my oldest. He was about 7 months when I met him. When I first met him, his mother bragged about how his father, who had passed by this time, was a blue blood. And she was very dysfunctional herself, very much an abuser, but she would brag about them being a blue blood. And I, at the time, didn't quite understand. And he made a couple mentions about being a Mason, and then would retract it and, oh, I'm a stone Mason, and this and that. Like, there was some really weird stuff that I should have picked up on, but clearly God had a plan for something else. And once this all happened, I actually looked into the last name and the bloodline, and these were people who were given Ireland to run in the 1400s. They were the bankers, they were the money lenders, they owned the property. When their kingdom subsided, they then moved back to England and bred into one of the king's lines at the time. So yes, this family is connected heavily to royal bloodlines. And the mother was stalking me for a time. He would threaten me. These things I would report to the police, thinking at some point someone has to do something. And all they would do was run to them to tell them what not to do, to tell them what I was recording, what evidence I was gathering. At no point did anything actually get recorded. And when I attempted to get my evidence from the police, a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act, of the reports of sexual abuse I had, once my son was returned to me out of it, he was gone, completely gone, would not wake up. Long story short, it was horrific. Took him to the hospital, reported it to the police. They wouldn't give me my files. I have the document where it says that we cannot release information on an active investigation. So not only are they not actively investigating the pedophilia, but they're refusing to release records that would indicate that they are guilty of not investigating pedophilia on babies.
Unbelievable.
So yeah, there's some major connections there.
How long are you planning to stay in Ottawa, or what's your next step in Ottawa and what you're doing?
Not sure. Again, this is God defined and godly led. What He needs me to do, I will do. How this turns out, what area it goes in, where this develops, it's up to Him. You know, He's been the guide here that has thwarted a few attempts on my life that, you know, that I'm listening. I'm listening for where He needs me next. And that's why I'm here with you tonight, Daniel, is that someone needs to be a voice. Someone needs to speak up about these things. And I'm also speaking for some of the other mothers that are standing behind me but cannot speak for fear of going to jail, for fear of, you know, losing any contact with their children. I've been forced into a position where I can't have contact with my children because the people that control them are running this whole program. So it would just give them an opportunity to make more lives. I had that police officer who threatened me, who I've recorded, make a false claim, who claimed that I called in and gave this ridiculous report. And this is what they ran with to the judge. There's no recording of it. There's no physical because it never happened. These are police officers who are criminals. Criminals.
Right. Yeah, they are criminals. They're probably, well, a lot of them are pedophiles themselves and working.
Bingo.
We have that thing in the United States too, where we have police officers who are pedophiles. We have judges who are pedophiles. It's on all levels of city and local and state governments. It's an unbelievable and huge swamp that is heartbreaking and horrible. And yet I'm so happy to hear that you have formed this group of mutual support. I know with me running my own, we have our own little nightly prayer meeting where we meet every single night to pray for each other, to lift each other up. It's become absolutely essential just for me. And I'm not necessarily an SRA victim or anything like that, but just with my reporting and everything, I need this group just to help me praying. So you have this group as well. How long have you had this group going?
Well, the prayer meetings have been taking place. It was taking place on a different format for quite some time. This format we've had up and running for a couple weeks now, so we're getting the hang of it. Again, depending on the information that comes in, the influx, the need will depend on how things operate in the future, but I wanted to offer that opportunity. Again, like I said, from the stories I've heard and from what I've already, you know, gathered, is that even some of these people don't understand how big what's really happening. And when they come around other people who are in it, they realize sometimes what they saw, what they didn't understand, and what was really going on. So I just want to offer that place to others that may feel completely isolated, that may be at the brink of losing their minds, legitimately, that there's a place that we're here. And, you know, there's opportunities for documentaries going forward. There's opportunities for heavy digging on the research on who these people are connected to. I've seen court orders from judges where the mothers are no longer allowed to take their children to the hospital to see a doctor, who are no longer to speak to the teachers because the teachers were reporting disclosures at school and they were documenting it. So the judge goes ahead and makes a court order that, no, you can't talk to the teacher anymore. This is how bad it is. This is how thick this cover-up goes.
Yeah, guys, do not let the enemy isolate you. Make sure you're always getting together with other brothers and sisters in Christ and Messiah, and you're supporting each other, because that's what they try to do. They try to isolate you. They try to make you feel like you're alone, and then they try to get you. So make sure that you're never, ever isolated. Like I said, we're going to have Ashley's YouTube channel and her email address right below this video. I've had a lot of subscribers who say, oh, how can we help? What can we do? Well, here's a way you can help. Here's where you can do. You can contact Ashley, and you can offer, and you can help, and you can maybe offer your assistance to what she's doing, because this is a massive undertaking that she and the small group of women are taking on. So Ashley, I'm not sure if I've asked the best questions on this interview, but I want to make sure that I give you free reign to talk about anything, any subject about what you want to make sure is communicated. I have 60,000 subscribers, so I want to give you another opportunity to speak about anything that you might want to still cover.
There was a couple of things. I do want to bring this back, and why I'm on your channel is that this is a spiritual battle. By and by, through and through, this is a spiritual battle. And those of us who have come across these things have come across it for a reason. You know, God is choosing all kinds of people to play a part right now. And it's time to act. It's time to play that part, whatever that may be. No one knows except you and God. That's between you and God. And there is a definite division between the wheat and the tares. And I don't know how that's going to turn out. I don't know what that's going to look like. You know, the Bible doesn't paint the best picture of what needs to come to pass before we get ourselves out of this. But it's so important. It's so important. And the fear, you got to let go of the fear. There are so many people in the system, teachers, doctors, social workers, police, that know about this. They've seen this. They've seen things. And they're afraid. They're afraid for their families. They're afraid for their jobs. They've received phone calls to be quiet. However it may be, it's time to step out of that fear. It's time to speak. It's time to tell the world what you have seen. This material world is not who we are. And if you're afraid of losing your house and your car and your reputation and any of those things, then get ready to lose it all. It's time to put that to the wayside and stand up for what is real. And that's what time we're at.
Absolutely. Yahshua said it the best, where he said, if you try to seek your life, you're going to lose it. But if you lose your life, you'll find it. So if you're worried about your reputation or your household goods or whatever, then you're going to get it all taken away eventually anyway. I totally agree with what Ashley's saying. And now is the time. You don't worry about the outcome. You worry about what's right to do. What's right to do is to defend these little children. What's right to do is to expose these satanic pedophiles, regardless of what happens to you. We're to do the right thing, and you've got to be covered in the blood of Jesus, of the Messiah. You've got to be filled with the Spirit, armored in His Word, if you're going to engage in this battle. That's absolutely important. Thank you, Ashley. You said you had a couple things to talk about. What was the other thing?
I think that was it. I think that was the generalization, and just that there is a lot of distractions going on right now. There are a lot of programs being played out by the media and the governments. There's huge divisions in all kinds of ways, whether it be this group against that group, or that we have to come together. We have to come together and realize no more of this. And when you start being pulled in one direction or the other, take a step back. Don't get pulled in those dramas, in those plays. Take a step back and listen for His word, because He will point you in the right direction.
Amen. And guys, all through His word, from Genesis to Revelation, He says He defends the poor, the fatherless, and the orphan. So these little children, these little babies, these are the first and foremost on His mind, according to His own word. And so we definitely need to be out there striving to protect these people. People think that it was way back in ancient biblical times that they were sacrificing children. Well, yeah, they were sacrificing children on altars of stone. Now it's a lot more hidden. They do it in the shadows. Now they figured out how to go into the most holy place of all, the mother's womb, to sacrifice these children. And there's organ harvesting going on. There's adrenochrome. There's all this blood ritual sacrifice, satanic sacrifices going on. All this stuff going on, and it's all tied into this child sex trafficking. This is the single most important issue right now. And if you call yourself a Christian, if you call yourself someone who's a follower of Christ, of Messiah, you need to be engaged in this battle. Absolutely. All right. Well, Ashley, I really appreciate you joining me. I'm eager to get this in front of my 60,000 subscribers, and definitely going to be keeping you in prayer, your organization in prayer, and your efforts, especially right now, as you're literally in the belly of the beast, standing out there in Ottawa, the capital of Canada. We know that they're bad here in the United States, but they're in some ways worse in Canada because you don't have all the rights that we do here as Americans, even though we're losing ours, but you have an even harder battle there. So we'll definitely be keeping you in prayer.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for this time tonight, and thank you for your the use of your platform and for being a voice for the voiceless.
Absolutely. And when you have some more updates on how Yah is leading you and what you're doing in Ottawa or elsewhere throughout Canada, we'll definitely have you on again on this program.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching. Shalom.